The governors are doing the testing. It's now not up, and it hasn't been up to the federal government. Go ahead.
Mr. President, I have a quick follow on the WHO, but if May 1...
I told them when they put this guy here, it's nothing but trouble. He's a showboat. If you keep talking, I'll leave, and you can have it out with the rest of these people.
Well, that was uncomfortable, and the way many of the president briefings have felt lately, some calling the relationship between the president and the press combative. So, are White House reporters asking questions on behalf of the American people, or are they just trying to cause a scene? Here's another example, a recent example.
Said many times that the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if every day Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world, and maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question, you may get a very unusual answer. Yes, behind you, please.
Sir, why are you saying that to me specifically?
I'm telling you, I'm not saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a nasty question like that.
That's not a nasty question.
Please go ahead.
Well, that was CBS correspondent Weijia Zhang asking President Trump, as you could see, if global testing is a competition. He puts the blame on China, and as you can see as well, she felt like it was a personal attack on her. So, is this an anomaly, or is this business as usual? We ask our senior White House correspondent, Emerald Robertson, to join us to talk about what's really going on with reporters during these briefings. Emerald, it does feel like more and more we're seeing these reporters be combative, and almost make it personal. You're there.
Yeah.
What's your experience?
Well, look, and I know specifically that Sean can speak to this, is that there's very different relationships between the president, the press secretary, and the press pool when it's off camera or on camera. Now, in talking about what you said about recent briefings, yes, they have become more combative and the press has become more aggressive in how they're approaching questions to the president of the United States of America. And I will say, a colleague recently coined a term that I thought fitted very well, the acostification of the press corps. And there's a lot of theatrics that are being employed right now, because what you don't see is the behind the scenes competition between reporters at the same network, between each other, in order to get that airtime, to get those sound bites that could end up being a promotion for them and go viral on Twitter, right? Because for them, that's the feedback.
Emerald, you talk about the competition. The thing that was really interesting in that last clip, though, is Caitlin Collins from CNN walks up to Weijia Zhang. She's already sitting down. We've moved on.
Yep.
And Caitlin Collins, this hasn't been talked about, says, "Do you want to follow up?" It was her encouraging her. And I think when you watch the clip, she almost looks like she goes, "Oh my gosh, I need to say something, so let's make it about me." It was fascinating the way that the other reporter kind of egged her on, like, "Hey, this is your opportunity to do something." But let me ask you a question that I think is so hysterical. When Stephanie Grisham was the press secretary, we heard endless complaints that there were no briefings. There was no briefings. CNN's Brian Stetler made it like a mission to talk about how many hours and days, and Washington Post Eric Wimple complained every day about this. Now that there are briefings between the president and Kayleigh McEnany, the networks, CNN and MSNBC in particular, aren't covering them.
Well, and it wasn't just that, Sean. They also stopped covering the president's briefing when the president was in there talking to the press corps every day. And if you'll recall, and I know it happened when you were there too, there was specifically one reporter that I won't name who would constantly ask, when is the president going to come in this briefing room? When is he going to address us from the podium like President Obama did? And the moment that he started doing that, networks started saying that they weren't going to air them because they were very popular with the American people. But it really comes down to this. It appears that no matter what this administration does, and especially when it comes to the press, they're not going to be happy with it, because it's always an us versus the president dynamic right now, because that's playing very well for these people, especially if they have a book coming out. You'll see the ante-up in the way that they approach the president and how they conduct themselves in the briefing room to get those viral sound bites.
Yeah.
Emerald, so glad to have you here with us and always to get your insight. Thank you. Our next guest is taking 3 major television networks on ABC, CBS, and NBC to task for deceiving the public. Emily Jashinsky from The Federalist writes how a string of deceptively edited videos highlight the media's misinformation problem. If you care about accuracy, you should care that millions of people were misinformed by major networks last week. We welcome that reporter, Emily Jashinsky. Emily, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so Emily, you talk about 3 specific instances that occurred. One with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press when he showed only part of Attorney General Barr's response. One on 60 Minutes and CBS when they edited Secretary Pompeo's ad. And then a Jimmy Kimmel incident on ABC where he went after the vice president falsely. So it's fascinating to me. I spent a long time in politics. We would make videos. The press would a lot of times say that we doctored the video because we put different clips next to each other. When they do it, they call it editing. And it seems it's funny that they have a standard for when they do it and when they want to make fun of or attack a political entity that's doing a very similar thing.
And I mean, do you remember the hysteria when that video of Nancy Pelosi went viral on Facebook that was doctored? Well, they're actually doing this in real situations with the news. And I remember when that hysteria happened, it was all like, we're so worried that people are getting misinformation. We're so worried that people are coming away with inaccurate impressions of reality. That's exactly what they're doing. They're manipulating it in these cases. And I would say Chuck Todd and Jimmy Kimmel, those are the most egregious examples of this string of 3 doctored videos or manipulated videos that happened in the span of 4 days last week, because all they had to do was play a second more of the clip. And that's why their excuse is that they didn't see the full clip. It just does not pass the smell test to me at all, because if you play 1 more second of both of those clips, you realize that the video was edited.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, Emily, something else I think is really interesting. Some of these people do come out and apologize. In the case of Chuck Todd, it was actually the network that came out and apologized, or Meet the Press that came and apologized. But at the same time, when viewers are watching this, they're not following all these Twitter feeds where they come out and say sorry. They really should be doing it on the air. Should we be calling for a higher standard of saying, if you make a mistake, the next day or the same day you need to come out and apologize on air, not just a tweet being the acceptable measure?
Well, absolutely. And I think we'll have to watch closely to see what happens on Meet the Press this Sunday, because Chuck Todd really should bring his error was so egregious that he actually, and it was so substantive. So not only was it so biased, but it was also such a substantive error in what he accused Attorney General Barr of not saying, that he should come out on Meet the Press and make that apology to the same audience, or roughly the same audience, millions of people that got the misinformation in the first place. And if you care about people being misinformed, as the sort of very sanctimonious defenders of the press say they do on a daily basis, they shout it from the rooftops, then they should be really freaked out about what happened last week, and they should be freaked out about all of these incidents on an individual basis. Chuck Todd just being one example. They should want him to do that.
Yeah, Emily, real quick, here's the thing that I don't get. Why can't they just say, I'm sorry, I screwed up? It's always got to be, we updated the story or correction. Just say, we're sorry.
Well, I think that gets to the heart of all of this. They cannot say that, because that is basically what they would have to do is admit that there's bias, because a lot of these things aren't just easy, simple mistakes. They were done for reasons that aren't explainable by just saying, whoops, we screwed up. It gets to a much deeper ideological issue with them. So I think that's why we often don't see the straight apology.
You make a really great point there. Thank you so much for being here and giving us your insight.
Thank you.
All right, well, when we return, we'll look at how ABC's Jimmy Kimmel edited a clip of the vice president and the fallout that followed. Plus, NASCAR is back. We'll meet a driver who will talk to us about all those details. Don't go away.